Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, we're going to look at some Raiders trade candidates after the 2025 NFL Draft. The Silver and Black went out, drafted 11 players in total, also went out and signed 16 UDFAs. But we got a brand new regime. Pete Carroll, we also got John Spytek. Could they potentially move on from some other players, a part of some past regimes? We're going to dive into all the players that I think could potentially be on the trade block. But first, a word from our sponsor. Raider Nation, very excited to announce we got a brand new sponsor here on the Raiders Report. Huge shout out to Temu for hooking up Raider Nation with a special promotion. Today's Temu deal is you can get 5 products for free by following these simple steps. Download the Temu app, search code DWH4868. That's code DWH4868 in the Temu app. You get 5 of the products you ordered for free by inviting your friends and family to download the app. It's that simple. The promotion is open to everyone, so share it with your friends and family members to take advantage of this awesome offer. I have used Temu in the past. I've been able to get shoes. I've been able to get totally different types of jackets. And if my fiance loves them, I think that you guys are going to love them too. Also, my dog Chuck loves this bed. So download the Temu app, search code DWH4868. That's code DWH4868 in the Temu app. You get 5 of the products you order for free by inviting your friends and family to download the app. It's that simple. I'm also going to put the link in the comments and description of today's show. So if you're looking for something to click, that's going to be down there for the nation. Let's go to the first player here that I think will be traded after the NFL draft. It's going to be Michael Mayer. And I know that there was a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors that the Silver and Black could potentially move on from Mayer during the draft. But let's face the facts here. You got to look at what the Raiders didn't do, and you also got to look at what the Raiders did. Bowers is the tight end one. That's not going to change at any time. And yes, I understand that Carroll and Spytek didn't go out and didn't draft a tight end, but they also did some other things that I think are very notable. They did add 3 tight ends this week. The first, they went out, and right before the NFL draft, they go out and they signed Ishmael, who, again, bottom of the roster type of tight end. But if you also remember, the Raiders cut 6 players before the NFL draft, and I think that that was one of the moves that they said, you know what, we're going to try to add some more picks. They ended up trading with the Miami Dolphins. They ended up trading with the Houston Texans. So even though Las Vegas did not draft a tight end, I do still wonder if this organization could potentially decide to move on from Mayer, because this is a roster that does have 7 tight ends on it as it stands right now. If the Raiders were to move on from Mayer, you save $653K, you eat 1.9, and I'll continuously say this. I don't want the Raiders to trade Michael Mayer. I think that, honestly, we can make this work with the 2 tight end set, because I also think that you can line up Brock Bowers as an outside receiver. If you were to ask me, Mitch, which teams out there do you think are the most notable that would trade for him? And I'm going to tell you this right now. You're going to see a lot of Titans. You're going to see a lot of Patriots on this video, because Ziegler is with Tennessee and Josh McDaniels with New England. And a lot of the players that I think will be on the trade block for the Raiders were drafted by those 2 guys. But a sneaky team to watch out for, the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a team that needs to go out and get another tight end on that roster. I'll also say the Saints and the New York Giants. Why not? Let's go to the next player here that I think could potentially be on the trade block. And I will say this yet again. I do not want the Raiders to trade Aidan O'Connell. I think Aidan is a great backup to Geno Smith. And I think AOC would make Cam Miller better, who the Raiders drafted in round 6 at 215. But Las Vegas had interest in trading for Joe Milton before the NFL draft. They go out and they get Cam Miller on day 3. And when you talk about overall value, there will be teams that see value in Aidan O'Connell because he's played in 20 games. He started in 17, and he's only going to cost them essentially $903K. Well, we actually saved $903K. The new team takes on $1.2 million. So if you look at all 32 teams in the NFL, and I actually think this, I think if you were to ask all 32 teams in the NFL, would you want to have Aidan O'Connell on your roster at $1.2 million? I legitimately think that all 32 NFL teams would have said yes. Now, I don't know if they're going to give up a draft pick for it, but I think now, considering the fact that the draft has already come and gone, now teams are going to be a little bit more willing to say, you know what, I'll give up a 6th-round pick in the 2026 NFL draft. I'll give up a 7th-round pick in next year's draft. In terms of which teams do I think could make this trade, I'm just going to say New England. I'll throw them out there for Josh McDaniels. Quite frankly, I actually think Aidan is maybe the hardest predictor of where he could potentially go out of everybody on this show. Tennessee Titans, maybe they want to move off from Will Levis and bring in a clear-cut backup to somebody along the lines of Cam Ward, because Levis was obviously just drafted in round 2 by another regime. The Packers, a lot of connections with some Raiders players. The Buccaneers, he's better than Kyle Trask. I don't give a shit what anybody says. And then the LA Rams, I kind of would love to see AOC to take down Jimmy G and take down Stetson Bennett in that quarterback room. So this will be the pinned comment here on today's show. Who's one player on the Raiders that you could see getting traded after the NFL draft? My answer is going to be coming up right here after this YouTube ad break. Out of all the players that I've talked about leading up into the draft, and for a lot of the OGs out there, you have seen me do this show. Trade candidates before the draft, cut candidates before the draft. The one name that I will throw in here that I've never talked about in a trade candidates video before, and a player that I said I could see having the most to lose entering the draft, it's wide receiver Tre Tucker. And the Raiders went out, they drafted 3 receivers. You drafted Jack Bech in round 2 at 58, Dante Thornton Jr. in round 4, 108, and then Tommy Mellot in round 6, 213. Tucker is going into his 3rd regime. He's going into his 3rd year, and the fact that the 3rd year, a lot of times for receivers, is looked at as like the breakout year. I'm going to be real, I don't know what exactly the plan is here for Tucker. He's a physical player. He's a good football player. But maybe he's going to get we thought maybe he could get a little bit more work at wide receiver. Bech is a better receiver than Tre Tucker. Oh, well, maybe Tre Tucker can be the field stretcher. Dante Thornton Jr. is faster than Tre Tucker. Oh, well, maybe we could put Tre Tucker in special teams. If you didn't see my interview that I did with Tommy Mellot, I'm pretty confident Tommy Mellot's going to be a big influential player in punt returns and kick returns. So we're left here going, what exactly are we going to do with a player that an old regime drafted in the 3rd round? If you trade him, you save $1 million. You eat $429K. This was a player that I thought had like a 5th round grade when the Raiders originally drafted him. But now we're sitting here going, maybe there's another team that values Tre Tucker. I mean, it was the pick that we got from Darren Waller. So if you were to ask me, Mitch, which teams could you see making the deal? I'll throw out the Miami Dolphins, and I say that because of all the drama. It's probably the best way to put it. Drama around Tyreek Hill. What if they were looking for a speedster? Maybe you add a little bit of speed. I actually think if I was the Baltimore Ravens, he would be a phenomenal fit in Baltimore because he is a physical wide receiver for his size. I know he's undersized, but we're talking about a high school wrestler. And I don't give a shit what anybody says. You don't mess with high school wrestlers. You don't mess with anybody that's got cauliflower ear. You know what I mean? I'm not doing it. But Tucker was a high school wrestler, and I think that because he can block and because he can field stretch, Baltimore would be an intriguing team. The Cincinnati Bengals, I will throw out there. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I think he's a good fit in the AFC North. And the reason why the Raiders drafted Tucker where they did, again, a few rounds a little bit earlier than what I anticipated, it was because he grew up in the same hometown as Dave Ziegler and as Josh McDaniels. There was a lot of coaching connections back from those times in Ohio, and Ziegler obviously right now is down there in Tennessee, and they just drafted Cam Ward. Let's go to the next player coming up here. It's going to be Dylan Parham, and Parham has been a starter for 3 seasons and is entering the final year of his contract. And if you're not 100% confident that he's going to start this year, maybe you decide to move on from him and sell high. Alex Kappa was signed this offseason. Jordan Meredith was re-signed this offseason. And then the Raiders went out and they drafted Caleb Rogers, who is a versatile offensive lineman, just like Dylan Parham. Rogers has played left tackle, left guard, right tackle. Charles Grant is predominantly on the left side. But you could save $3.7 million. You would eat $228K. I'll admit, I think that this actually would rub a lot of the Raiders' offensive linemen the wrong way. Dylan Parham is a very well-liked and very well-respected person in that room. In fact, I saw the other day a bunch of the Raiders' offensive linemen went out to a Vegas Golden Knights game. Colton Miller was there. Dylan Parham was there. Jackson Powers Johnson was there. A few of the rookies were there. And Dalton Wagner was there. There was a lot of other players that were thrown into that mix. I believe Munford was also there. But I'm telling you, Dylan Parham is a glue guy for this offensive line. And it'll be interesting to see how it ends up shaking out. If you were to ask me which teams could make the trade, this is just the teams that I think are going to be the most likely. Parham would have value, though. I'm telling you right now, because he could play in so many different spots on a line, that is a tremendously valuable position. And again, another player that I don't really want to trade, But part of doing this show is, it's unlike cut candidates, you move off from players because I don't think anybody else is really going to be interested. Trade candidates, there has to be two to tango. So you actually have to put players in this video that teams would actually be interested in going out and trading for. Let's go to the defensive side of the football now, and I hope that I get another message from Tyree Wilson that says, bro, you're capping. I'm not going to get traded because this is another player that I don't want the Raiders to trade. But the idea of this show and the idea of the Raiders Report sometimes is just to educate fans and just show people the multitude of different opportunities or multitude of different things that can happen in an offseason. I'll be real. If you do end up trading Tyree Wilson, I would wait until after June 1st because you can save $3 million and eat only $3 million if you wait until after June 1st. But if a team were to trade for him and if you were to get compensation, I would say that might happen now than after June 1st. However, though, the Raiders brought back Malcolm Koonce. You re-signed Adam Butler, and then you drafted 2 defensive tackles. I understand that Tyree Wilson is a defensive end, but he also does play defensive tackle and is a versatile defensive end. That's exactly what Hemingway and Pegues, are as well. Like, the Raiders went out and they added multiple versatile defensive tackles that can also play edge, which concerns me a little bit for Tyree Wilson. If I was a betting man, I would say Wilson would either go to the Dallas Cowboys because it's where he works out all offseason. It's where his agent is located, and, he's down here. I actually also know Houston is a team that I think he would be interested in playing for. Not saying he wants to play for the Texans, but in conversations I've had, Cowboys and Texans would be 2 schools just because, again, Texas ties. The New York Jets love athletes. The Eagles, I think, would take a chance on him, and I think the Atlanta Falcons would be another team there to at least keep in mind. But let me be clear. I do not want to trade Tyree Wilson. Before we get into the, I believe, final player on today's show, I might have one more. I don't know. I kind of forget. But I do want to say this. I want to give away an Ashton Jeanty jersey in the month of May. And I understand that a lot of people are busy individuals and you don't always have the time to tune in live. But a lot of the giveaways that we do are during live. So I'm going to give an opportunity for the entire month of May, and if it goes well, we'll continue to do it. If you want a chance to win an Ashton Jeanty jersey and you can't join us live, send in a $5 super chat, and every single time we do a live show, what did I say, super chat? $5 super thanks or a super chat, and you're going to be entered to win. We will announce that winner on Friday, May 30th, and when we go live, I will update people of, yes, I saw your super thanks. Yes, you are entered in to win an Ashton Jeanty jersey. This is just another opportunity to get some excitement, and I want Ashton Jeanty to have the #1 selling rookie jersey, so I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure it can happen. Let's go to another player here that I could see end up being traded after the NFL draft, and it's going to be linebacker Tommy Iikenberg. And Iikenberg was drafted in the 5th round in 2024. I think that you could also give an argument that Amari Burney could also be featured here instead of Iikenberg. The Raiders went out and they drafted Cody Lindenberg out of Minnesota in round 7 at pick 222. Lindenberg, to me, is a bigger competition for Iikenberg, not just because of the last name, but because of the style of linebacker that they are, where Burney is more of the athletic freak, and you look at a lot of the moves that the Raiders made in terms of the draft this offseason, even, UDFA signings, they went out and they got a lot of guys with traits, a lot of guys that are just athletic specimens. That's not really what Tommy Iikenberg brings to the table. So if they were to move on from him, yeah, I would like to see what he could bring. I thought that this would have been a fun little project player for a Robert Spillane. But in all honesty, speaking of Spillane, I think the New England Patriots could be a team to keep in mind. I think a team like the Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals, because of those Ohio ties. And then when you look at just linebacker rooms across the NFL, Carolina's a weak one. Seattle Seahawks is a weak one. And there will be teams that say, you know what, that kid might not have the most athletic gifts, but he is a player that is always seemingly around the football. At least he was in college. He was only playing for 1 year here in the NFL. And I know the Raiders like Amari Gaynor. I think maybe a little bit more than Iikenberg. But hey, time's going to tell. We're going to go out there and we're going to compete. So one more time here. Here are the Raiders post-draft trade candidates. And none of these players, I would say the Raiders are currently shopping, at least that I know about. And if I get information that the Raiders are shopping any of these players, I'll let you know. This is me just putting 2 to 2 together that if I was working on an NFL team, I saw what happened, the writing's on the wall, and I would pick up the phone and I would call the Raiders and say, hey, are you shopping AOC? Are you shopping Tre Tucker? What about Michael Mayer, Tyree Wilson, Iikenberg, or Dylan Parm? If you made it this far in the video, huge shout out to you. You're an absolute real one. And if you haven't already, make sure those notifications are turned on, because I promise you this, if any of those players are traded, I will be live here on the Raiders Report.